Hello and welcome back to Table Talk. My name is Eric Martin, your host for today, and we're going to jump right in today. Not going to waste too many times on introduction here, because this topic that I'm going to bring up today is something I feel is important, and that is when you have a family member living alone, especially elderly parents, aging parents that are alone, things can happen, as we know. And this process or subject or whatever you want to call it popped in my head the other day because I was thinking back about when my mother had her stroke and she was alone. She was living alone. Father's already passed away. And she had her stroke. And in that short time that she was alone and on the ground, there was a scheduled appointment for, I think it was a furnace cleaning from the oil company to look at the oil furnace. And she remembers the tech coming to the door, ringing the bell, knocking on the door. There was a message from the office saying that the tech was there and they were just checking to see what was going on and if they needed to reschedule, things like that. And there were a couple, maybe there was like 2 papers on the front porch at that time or whatever. Probably not enough for somebody to go, this is really weird here. But a lot of older people tend to have or request the same technicians to come to their house. Down here in Florida, we have pool guys, right? Same pool person comes week in, week out, right? Same thing with the air conditioning companies. If there's maintenance, that they usually request the same person. It's a trust thing with them. They trust these people to come into their homes. They trust them that they're going to do the good work. They're going to not do something crazy to them or anything like that. And when these techs show up, more than not, they'll see your parents or the aging person in the home and have a little conversation with them. Even if it's, hey, good morning, whatever, there's always some type of interaction. And I really feel that some of these companies may be able to help in the future, that if they were to institute a emergency contact system just for people that live home alone that are older, that are at risk for falling, for strokes, for heart attacks, for any medical emergency that does not allow them to get to the door or be seen by somebody. I understand that them calling 911 just because somebody didn't answer a door is extreme and unadvisable, because I was on the emergency services back in New Jersey, and I understand that they are viable and they just can't be running everywhere because somebody didn't answer a door. But I do believe that if certain techs are going to these people's houses 3 times a year or 4 times a year or weekly, like the pool person or the landscaper, and they don't see these people, like it's subject to know that their car's out front. But normally they pop outside and they usually pop outside and see me, right? They didn't do that today, right? So maybe they knock on the door and they don't get anything, or they do something, they don't do something. If they have a contact number for a child, for a sister or a brother, and say, hey, we were at the house today, and there's some mail in the mailbox. There was a paper or two in the front, and we showed up and nobody answered the door, but the car was there. Is everything all right? And then allow that person, that contact person, that emergency contact person, to then say, oh no, you know what? We had an issue the other day. She had to go to the hospital, or nope, she wasn't feeling well, so she's staying with her son, or there could be a reasonable explanation for it, and that's great. All right. But then again, it could be, nope, they should be home. They should have answered the door, or funny enough, I tried calling them this morning and they didn't answer the phone, and create an urgency with that emergency contact. Now, if that person is still at the house, then yes, maybe then the emergency person can say, hey, call 911 because something's not right. Then it's okay. But I'm just wondering out there, and if you own a business and you're watching this video, a small business or even a large business, if you already do something like this, how does it work? How is it instituted? If you're in a smaller business and you don't, especially in the Sarasota area, maybe we could connect and figure out how to do something like this, because I'm not laying blame on anybody, but if there was a system like that in place, maybe my mother would have only spent 2 days or instead of 3 or 4 days on the floor. And trust me, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think that if I called her that day, if I called that day earlier. But when you think about how many times you may talk to your parents, might be once a week, twice a week, right? Because sometimes every day becomes monotonous. Every day is just, especially when it was during COVID or right after COVID, that every day, what'd you do? Watch TV, because that's all I could do. Great. And when we're talking about these previous videos of these long distance, I don't want to call them relationships because they're not relationships, but long distance families, all right? Sometimes these techs and these landscapers see your parents more, talk to them more than you do. And it's not a knock that you don't call them every day. It's not a knock that you don't care about them. You do. But everybody has their lives to live. All right. And sometimes that means you have to work. That means you have to take your kids here, take your kids there. And instead of calling them on Monday, sometimes you may have to call them on Wednesday. But things happen. All right. And when those things happen, it's nobody's fault. And there's nothing that anybody can go back in time and change. But I do believe that if a system like this was voluntarily implemented by a company, I'm not saying or changing any laws or saying it has to be this way, but just one more layer to kind of like be on that senior's side and that family side to say, hey, look, something was off today. It wasn't right. We're a little concerned that something may be wrong. Here's your notice to just check in on it. And that's all. And who knows how many people it could save. And unfortunately, a lot of these seniors don't have any family. Some of them may have passed away. They may not talk to any more of them. So they rely on neighbors or just friends. And again, if those people aren't home all the time to see your loved ones all the time, they may not even think about the fact that they haven't talked to them in a day or two either. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you feel that this is something that could be implemented or maybe even should be looked upon through some businesses, and maybe we can make a difference and help some seniors and help their families know that there's an extra layer of help and protection. So look forward to seeing you on the next video, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.